The drama surrounding Oleksandr Usyk is not just about victories, titles, or championships. It is about vengeance, honor, and retribution against those foolish enough to cross the line with him. In the brutal theater of boxing, there are men who fight for money. There are men who fight for glory. And then there is Usyk, who fights with the weight of history, the pride of a nation, and the wrath of a warrior who cannot and will not tolerate disrespect. For years, cocky opponents have stepped forward, puffed up with arrogance, daring to insult him, mock him, and belittle his craft. They thought their words would break him. Instead, their words only sealed their fate. Because when Oleksandr Usyk feels disrespected, there is no mercy, only punishment. And what follows is not just a fight, is a lesson carved into the jaws, ribs, and shattered egos of those who dared to stand against him. The year was 2018, when a man named Tony Bellew believed he was destined to be the one who stopped Usyk's reign. Bellew wasn't just confident, he was drunk on arrogance. He dismissed Usyk's power, mocked his technique, and spoke as if his fists had divine power to switch off any opponent like a light bulb. He boasted of knockout strength, of the kind of punch that could put a man to sleep in the blink of an eye. For Bellew, Usyk was just another stepping stone, another obstacle on his way to self-proclaimed greatness. But what he didn't realize was that he wasn't stepping on a stone, he was stepping into quicksand. And the more he struggled, the faster he would sink. When the bell rang, Bellew came out with swagger, smiling, taunting, showing the world the face of a man who thought he had everything under control. He danced around the ring, through combinations with bravado, and even mocked Usyk mid-fight, talking, smirking, letting arrogance drip from every gesture. But behind Usyk's calm eyes was a storm waiting to erupt.
Ow.
The Ukrainian champion bided his time studying Bellew, watching every reckless move, every gap in his defense, every moment where his pride outweighed his caution. Round by round, Usyk turned up the heat. His punches grew sharper, his timing more precise, and his presence more suffocating. Bellew, once so cocky, began to falter, though the smug smile remained plastered on his face, as if to convince himself he was still in control. But then a thunderous left hand from Usyk detonated against Bellew's jaw like a bomb. The crowd erupted as Bellew crumpled, his body collapsing into silence, his arrogance extinguished in an instant. Usyk didn't just win the fight, he humiliated a man who had mocked him, leaving him sprawled on the canvas as living proof of what happens when arrogance meets reality. But Bellew wasn't the only rat to crawl into Usyk's path. In one of his more recent battles, another brash opponent dared to spit venom before even stepping into the ring. He claimed youth was on his side, that strength and power were his weapons, that Usyk was old, fading, and destined to fall. He declared that he would put Usyk to sleep. These words were not just disrespect, they were a declaration of war. Usyk, as always, was ready to let his fists do the talking. When the referee signaled the start, Usyk wasted no time. His movements were fluid, his punches crisp, and his eyes locked on his prey. With every jab, every hook, every precise strike, he broke his opponent down piece by piece, stripping away his confidence, forcing him into retreat. The so-called stronger fighter quickly found himself drowning under a relentless tide of skill and precision. And then came the finishing blowing, another jaw-shattering punch that sent his rival crashing into unconsciousness. The crowd knew it, the commentators knew it, and the fallen fighter knew it too. Even if only in the last fading seconds of awareness, Oleksandr Usyk is not a man you disrespect. He is a force of nature, but perhaps the ugliest and most personal. Encounter came in 2017 when Usyk faced Marco Huck, unlike Bellew or the others. Huck's disrespect wasn't limited to trash talk about Usyk's boxing. No, he crossed the line into family, spitting out insults not just at Usyk, but at his own mother. That was a crime that could not be forgiven. Not in the streets, not in the ring, not anywhere. For Usyk, this fight was no longer about belts, rankings, or prize money. It was about honor. It was about defending his bloodline. From the opening, Usyk charged like a warrior possessed, Huck, desperate and overwhelmed, resorted to dirty tactics, elbows, headbutts, cheap shots, anything to slow the Ukrainian storm. But every filthy trick only enraged Usyk more. The calm, calculating boxer transformed into an avenger, and the punishment rained down with brutal precision. Punch after punch, Usyk dismantled Huck, breaking him not just physically but spiritually. And when the referee finally stepped in, waving the fight off to save Huck from further destruction, it was more than just a victory. It was a statement to the world: insult Usyk's family, and you don't just lose, you are annihilated. Then came Derek Chisora, a man known not only for his power in the ring but for his chaotic, unhinged behavior outside of it. He was the clown of boxing, the self-proclaimed destroyer, the man who promised to give Usyk the fright of his life. For weeks leading up to the fight, Chisora unleashed his antics, laughing, mocking, acting as though Usyk was nothing more than his next victim. But behind the theatrics was a fighter unprepared for the storm he was about to face. On fight night, Chisora charged forward with raw aggression, trying to overwhelm Usyk with sheer force. But Usyk was unshaken. He absorbed the chaos, adjusted his rhythm, and turned the fight into a masterclass of control. His punches were like precision-guided missiles, finding their target again and again. With each round, Usyk took Chisora apart, exposing him as the clown he was. By the final bell, there was no doubt Chisora had been dominated, humiliated, and sent right back to the circus where he belonged. But Usyk's lessons didn't begin with Chisora, Bellew, or Huck. From the very start of his professional career, he faced arrogance head-on. When he stepped into the ring against the veteran Caesar David Crin, many believed the older, more experienced fighter would crush the rising star. Crin himself mocked Usyk, taunted him inside the ring, convinced he would run over him like a lawnmower over grass. But arrogance is always a dangerous weapon when turned against yourself. Usyk studied Crin, toying with him, almost playing with his food before striking with the kind of liver shot that few men could endure. It was precise, devastating, and final. Crin collapsed, his body writhing in pain, his arrogance shattered along with his ribcage. Usyk walked away with his hand raised, proving that even from the earliest days of his career, disrespect would never go unpunished. What makes Usyk's story so powerful is not just the victories, not just the belts, but the way he carries himself. He doesn't need to scream, to boast, to insult. He lets his fists do the talking, and when those fists speak, they speak with thunder.